What is going on, guys? Dylan Nossman, DSK Combat Sports here, and this is the first episode of what will hopefully be a weekly or potentially bi-weekly show of just talking MMA. Don't have a name for it yet. Don't have any real concrete plans other than obviously, technical breakdowns, going over events, fight news, upcoming events, previews, really just talking about, again, the world of MMA, which, as many people close to me know, is my ultimate passion and what I spend the most time talking about. So, yeah, today it is Tuesday, December 8th, I believe, 9th, one of those 2 days. Gets a little mixed up sometimes. Sorry, guys. But we are fresh off of UFC 322 over the weekend, which I had the amazing opportunity to attend and witness, which, again, I think most people can agree who watched the event. That was probably one of the best cards of the year. Definitely one of the best pay-per-views. Top down, I mean, it was just filled with action, lots of finishes, lots of really high-level fights. Yeah, I mean, it was it was pretty good. This was my second UFC event I've attended. I went to UFC Denver last year, which was Namajunas versus Cortez, which obviously the infamous eyelash getting punched off was quite entertaining to witness live. But other than that, the card was pretty mediocre, and I wasn't really just satisfied. It felt like the production just wasn't quite there on a fight night. And yeah, this time around, obviously the UFC puts a lot more effort into their pay-per-views. Sorry about that. A lot more effort in their pay-per-views just makes it a bigger deal. The production on the screens, the lighting, the vibe on the walkouts, just everything felt just a bit bigger. It was a good card. Obviously, want to point out no heavyweights on the entire event, which I am personally a fan of. I'm a fan of the little guys. I like them scrapping. I feel like the level's so much higher with the lower weight classes, and as we know, the heavyweight division is kind of in shambles at the current moment. But again, great card. Starting at the top, I mean, obviously, Merab lost his belt to Petr Yan in the main event. Really, really good fight. I mean, Petr Yan did everything correct. I was really, really impressed with his composure, his jab, his just the way he approached the pace in the fight. And the biggest thing that I noticed, especially being in the arena, was Merab looked slow. Like the many weight cuts this year, the 4 weight cuts, and the almost 100 minutes of octagon time clearly caught up to him, and it was just, you could just tell he was just not all there physically. So I think obviously that was a huge factor, just being that he couldn't quite get going like he normally does. But at the same time, Petr Yan came with a great game plan. I mean, he was working the body early and then obviously hurting him on multiple occasions. I haven't seen somebody react to a body shot that poorly since Daniel Cormier was fighting Stipe Miocic. Merab literally covered up his stomach with his hand on multiple occasions, which was pretty crazy to see. But yeah, again, Yan is champ. We got a lot of good matchups potentially. I mean, obviously he's fought up and down the top 5 already. He's beat Song Yadong. He's beat Davison Figueiredo. He's fought Sean O'Malley. So we're probably going to get a Merab rematch. Pretty much all my sources are kind of pointing that direction anyways, that as soon as he's healthy, they're going to run it back for the third tiebreaker matchup. But yeah, co-main event, Alexandre Pantoja versus Josh Van, Obviously the most disappointing time or moment of the night. What was shaping up 26 seconds in to be an absolute barn burner was cut short due to a very, very tragic arm break. I will say I don't love how everybody, like the jiu-jitsu community in particular, is like, oh, that's why you learn break falls in class. Like, it's simple. You're a champion. You should be able to not break your arm in a fall. Which, yes, break falls are one of the first things you're taught on day one jiu-jitsu. But you're not taught a break fall off of a caught head kick, getting leveraged over and then posting in a sideways stance. It's just not something that happens. We see these arm breaks all the time, unfortunately. We saw Jamie Cordero versus Pirat Kristovic in Octagon earlier this year. Another legend fighter just went to post and his elbow snapped. It's just a really unfortunate part of fighting and awkward falls and not knowing predictably where you're going to end up. And even the best grapplers in the world like Pantoja can still, suffer a little accident like that. So at the end of the day, Van won the title. Well, Pantoja lost the title. Van is the champion. Not saying he didn't lose it. It's not like it was a DQ. It's not like there was any sort of weird circumstances outside of it just being a freak accident. And as we know, an injury in a fight leads to a TKO. That's been the rules since the beginning. So, hats off to Josh Van. Obviously, lots of really exciting matchups that hinges into the next one. Tatsuro Taira absolutely dominated Brandon Moreno. Really weird first round, not much happening. Some weird positions, and then second round Taira just put it on him. I mean, I think he definitely Moreno got hurt by that takedown. He hit his head on the mat. I think that dazed him enough to give Taira the positioning to really, get that dominant body triangle, which, by the way, the inside body triangle that he uses is one of the best techniques I've seen from the back of almost any MMA fighter in the UFC, or just period. I mean, the way he laces his leg inwards, he squeezes, he controls the hips and follows the hips all the time when he's on the back. And it gives him full torso control to strike, to go for submissions, to whatever, because he's literally attached to the hips. It's not up on the ribs like some people do. It's literally attaching to the center point of the opponent. So, yeah, I think it was a fair stoppage too. I mean, I rewatched it. I counted 18 unanswered strikes that Brandon Moreno really wasn't doing much to. So, yeah, I mean, hats off to Tatsuro Taira. Henry Cejudo and Peyton Talbot, obviously. Cejudo, his last fight, big time retirement, but at the same time, he, despite getting 30-27 on all three scorecards, he put on a hell of a performance. It's always interesting, and I talk about this a lot. MMA scoring is it's just not there yet, because you can have 3 pretty close rounds. And obviously, I'm not saying Peyton Talbot didn't win the fight, like he won clearly, but you could have a guy get knocked down in 3 rounds once apiece, and it can be a 30-27, or you can have an absolute scrap war where both guys are landing shots, and it still can be a 30-27. So, again, that was one of those situations where I feel like Henry put on a much better performance than perhaps the scorecards indicate. But, yeah, I mean, he, hands down, one of the greatest combat sports athletes to ever do it. He and his team were a big reason why I was able to go to the event this week, which was amazing. So, again, hats off, shouts to the whole Cejudo squad, and I hope he has a good retirement. And on the other hand, Peyton Talbot, I mean, I hate to say this, but like, he feels like everything they thought Sean O'Malley was going to be. And he's number 12 now as of this morning in the rankings. He's really on the way up. Like, he's good. Future champ. I'm saying it now. I think he's going to be champion within the next 3 years in the bantamweight division. But Jan Blachowicz continues to have the weirdest run in the UFC right now. 2 losses by split decision and 2 draws, I believe. Lost to Bogdan Guskov. I think it's hilarious. Jan Blachowicz went for a heel hook, knowing that Guskov's primary training partner is Walter Walker, and he was on a 4-fight heel hook streak. And I was sitting there looking, I'm like, there is literally no way in hell that Guskov taps to a heel hook from anybody, considering he trains every single day with Walter Walker trying to rip his knee to shreds, I bet. So, anyways, that was funny, but relatively mediocre fight with some good moments, I'd say. It was fine, but respect to Jan. He's a legend, forever, Polish power. On the prelims, Manuel Torres beat my boy Grant Dawson. I was pretty sad, but Manuel Torres, great power, great striker, really long and lanky, very dangerous, and Grant Dawson has been kind of proven to struggle with those types of matchups. So, I think Grant Dawson is kind of settling into that kind of gatekeeper role, top 15, top 15 through 20 ranked in the UFC. If you can get past him, you're going to be poised for something good, but if not, it's going to be a long night at the office. Macy Barber beat Karine Silva. It was fine. Macy Barber, I appreciate how she always tries to finish fights. She's very violent. She actually goes for things, which is great, especially ground and pound. Karine Silva came with a pretty grappling heavy approach, as you'd expect. Cheated a couple times, grabbed the fence, kicked Macy in the head when she was down. But yeah, decision for Macy, 7-fight win streak, especially big following the Aaron Blanchfield debacle from earlier this year, where she pulled out 5 minutes before the walkouts. Chris Duncan, Terrence McKinney. Again, a classic Terrence McKinney / Chris Duncan fight. They absolutely brawled. Terrence almost got him out of there, and then fell into a front choke. It's about the classic situation. Bruno Ferreira beat Marvin Vettori in a fight where he missed weight. I had a friend who was in the sauna with Vettori cutting weight. This is after Bruno already missed weight, and this is very interesting to point out, but he was pissed. He was like, fuck that guy, I'm pissed. If he misses weight, I get like $5,000. If I miss weight, he gets more than his entire purse. which is a very good point. With a lot of these veteran versus prospect fights, a lot of these prospect are on 12 and 12, 20 and 20 contracts. So 20% of their purse for missing weight is literally $5,000 to $8,000 versus Marvin Vettori, who former title challenger, has 20 plus fights in the UFC. I would almost guarantee he's in the 200,000 to 300,000 range for his show purse. And so if he misses weight, 20% of that, you're again higher total money to the opponent than his entire purse would be. This also happened with Kelvin Gastelum and Dustin Stoltzfus earlier this year. Dustin Stoltzfus made, I think, $120,000 roughly off of Kelvin missing weight, and he talked about this. He said this was almost double my fight purse, so I would be stupid to not accept it because I'm making more money from one fight than I'd make for 3 fights on my contract. So yeah, a really fascinating point there on like the weight misses and how contracts and the 20% works. KSW, the promotion over in Poland, recently announced that they're going to be, if you miss weight, you have a point taken at the beginning of the fight automatically. So you start at basically 10-9 for your opponent, which I think that's the way to handle it because weight misses do provide an advantage in fights. And at the end of the day, there's a lot of guys who are probably willing to sacrifice 20% of their purse to not have to cut those extra few pounds. So very, very interesting stuff. Oh yeah, great fight. Nazim Sadikov versus Fares Ziam. I was really, really impressed with Fares Ziam in this fight because Naz obviously coming off that fantastic barn burner win against Nicholas Moda over in Azerbaijan. But Fares Ziam, 6-fight winning streak. He was supposed to fight Khawi Fernandez back in Paris in September. Fell through. Harry Hardwick ended up stepping in and losing that fight. But obviously got this one. And, his clinch and transitionary work is so, so good. Up against the fence, even in space with the clinch, he finds knees, he finds elbows. And I think the most impressive part about his game is that sagging single leg that he finds. He'll get the over-under and then sag down to one side so he's heavy on the arms. The opponent starts to have to carry his weight. And then his arms are so long that he can grab underneath almost like a high crotch, but then he just steps away and pulls the leg and forces them onto one leg. He can then control. He can push it back to the fence. He can trip. There's so many options off that. And then obviously the finish, he caught Naz at the end of the round, turning up off the fence, hit him with an elbow. And I think the stoppage was proper but weird. Herzog waited about 4 seconds after the bell went to wave off the fight, which at that point you just need to let him recover and try for the next round. But yeah, Herzog, don't get me started with Herzog. We'll talk about that in a future episode. But anyways, what else? Fight of the night, excuse me. Iwo Baranowski versus Ibo Aslan. Hands down, the craziest 90 seconds I've ever witnessed live in my life watching an MMA fight. These guys, I think, knocked each other down at least 2 times each, maybe 3 times, and it was all within a span of 90 seconds. And in the first 30 seconds of those 90 seconds, nothing happened. So it was basically an entire fight's worth of action in 60 seconds. And a really interesting point about this fight, especially being in the arena, noticing this is why the crowd matters so much. There was a point where after a couple knockdowns, Ibo backed up, and at this point, arena was maybe 30% full. But we went nuts, and the crowd went crazy enough that Ibo said, "Nah, fuck it, I'm going back in."
This is insanity. They're just fighting. They're fighting.
And then they started swinging again.
This is like a bar fight between 2 guys who know how to fight.
He ended up getting knocked out, but I think in that moment, in a place like the Apex, there wouldn't have been that extra incentive to go for the kill. And I think that's why it led to such a crazy finish. So again, always fights should be in a live venue or arena. I've always said gladiators deserve their Coliseum, and this was a prime example of that. But rounding it off, Mansur Abdul Malik beat professional poker player and part-time MMA fighter Antonio Trocoli. And Myron Santos with a really impressive knockout over cheater Muhammadjan Naimov. So, again, great card. Really fantastic event from top down. Really, really good stuff. And also the end of an era. This is the last pay-per-view event that is going to be airing on ESPN. So we have our fight night this upcoming weekend, Royval versus Kopp at the Apex, but this was kind of like the swan song for the ESPN pay-per-view era. It's been an interesting 7 years to say the least. I did kind of just want to get a little rant off my chest talking about regional MMA, in particular UFC Fight Pass. For those who know me, I'm obviously a huge fan of regional MMA. Not just a huge fan, very involved as well from a lot of perspectives for a lot of different promotions. But UFC Fight Pass is, for those who do or don't know, is the streaming service that the UFC owns and operates. This is their fight library, which includes most old UFC fights, including promotions they've acquired, such as Pride, Strikeforce, WEC, things like that. So all those kind of promotions fall under Fight Pass. They also operate for many, many live streams for current regional promotions. So promotions such as Cage Warriors, LFA, FCC, Shudo, Cage Fury FC, all these big, particularly North American regional promotions are under UFC Fight Pass. And it didn't used to be like this. It used to be, you would find regional promotions on places like Spike TV or Fuel TV or these kind of off networks that weren't really the traditional, maybe like, they were cable networks, but they weren't your traditional sports networks. But when UFC Fight Pass started, they started grabbing up all these regional promotions and signing them to these exclusive Fight Pass contracts. And they're extremely long-term for one. And unfortunately, just full disclosure, I've never seen one of these contracts. They're extremely hard to find. If anybody watching this has access to a promotional contract with Fight Pass, I would love to see it. Please find me on Instagram, DSK Combat Sports. But from what I do know from people who have at least talked to people, they typically sign for 8 to 10 years, so very, very long period. And the UFC will, help with some sponsors. They'll air all the events. They'll promote to some extent on the UFC Fight Pass promotions. And what it does is it guarantees a path for these fighters, these regional promotions, to get to the Contender Series or the UFC. So what happens is they sign this contract, which then is exclusive. So they cannot stream on any other basically American or North American broadcast, which then leaves the only audience for these promotions to be UFC fans, meaning those who subscribe to UFC Fight Pass. They pay the $10 a month to watch this, and they probably are UFC fans first and regional fans second. Why this is so important is because it stunts the growth of these organizations. There's no way to organically grow in their own streaming regional capacity because the only people who truly know about these events are UFC fans. And it's unfortunately a way that the UFC controls the regional promotions as well, because for those who remember when Strikeforce was a massive player in the MMA game, the UFC was very concerned, and they did not like that there was another organization putting on big events that were actually like getting good draws on TV and crowds. So to basically make sure that no American regional promotion can grow bigger or even close to the size of the UFC, the Fight Pass contracts themselves allow the UFC to keep them at basically a capped level that will never escape the UFC audience on Fight Pass. So that's again, I just have to rant about that because I've really noticed it this year more than anything. It's just such a funnel and such a monopolized system when it comes to how they foster and breed regional talent and how those regional promotions have the opportunity to grow themselves. But anyways, so this week we're getting to the end of the year, which usually means promotions tend to start, cooling down the events about first, second week of December as the holidays roll around. And then most promotions tend to take a break until the end of January. As somebody who works with regional promotions, it's very funny because I've seen people try to schedule regional events around January, and so many fighters pull out because they're traveling or they just simply got too heavy over the holidays and they're like, yeah, I'm not going to make the weight that I said I was going to make. And, especially amateurs where there's not a fight person on the line. Most promotions just say we're just going to wait till February. But all right, on that note, keeping it short this week. I should be back later this week with a event preview for this weekend. I got the UFC card, Royval versus Cap at the Apex, PFL Europe, Fury FC, as well as a couple others. Stay tuned for that. And otherwise, like, subscribe, follow me on Instagram, DSK Combat Sports, and just let me know if there's anything you want to see in particular in the comments. Again, there's just space to talk MMA, get some inside info, see what's going on around the world of mixed martial arts. And on that note, we should be seeing Mario Bautista versus Vinicius Lockdog Oliveira at main event at the Apex February 7th. Should be a banger fight. Not announced yet, but should be in the next few days. On that note, peace out.